Good afternoon, and thank you for joining Conversations for College Success. I want to thank my subscribers and those of you who are new listeners. Please become subscribers. And I also want to let you know that if you have any comments or questions, please send them to conversations for college success at hotmail.com. Again, conversations for college success at hotmail.com. I actually had a chance to talk with my friend again, Allie, and this time we were talking about what personal models do you have or do you live by? And I want her to start this off because I thought hers were phenomenal and things that will be helpful for each of you as you move through your career.
Charlene, I have currently about three models that I live by, and I also used them when I was working, and how I carry myself at work. The first one is that I wanted to carry myself in such a way that I could hold my head up in the daytime and lay it down at night. By that, I mean I wanted to be able to have a clear mind that I did no harm to anyone and I was able to sleep at night. I've seen people do things in the workplace that I don't know how they can sleep. I just don't understand it. But they probably sleep like babies, but I don't get it. The The second one is that I always want to be in a situation where I want people to be glad to see me coming and sad to see me leaving instead of the other way around. We've seen some people like, oh Lord, here they come. Thank God they're gone. I don't want to be that one. I want to be the first one. And then the last one is I got from a t-shirt. And that was my most recent one I got about 2 years ago. And it's basically never argue with anyone Harriet would have left behind.
I love all three of those and for different reasons. I would say if it was a motto that I lived by, it was that I always wanted to be honest with people. Now, I don't necessarily mean brutally honest, but honest in that I would share with my students. I would rather tell you something to your face rather than have you hear it behind your back. And so, whether it was the fact that they weren't in a professional appearance, or the fact that they said or did something that was inappropriate, you're going to hear it directly from me. You're not going to hear it secondhand from someone else or anything like that. And I think by being that honest with students, what that ended up doing was helping them to come to me with questions or concerns that they had so that they would be able to do the right thing the first time around and not have to make adjustments. When I think about what you said about being able to hold your head up high and sleep at night, I hate to say it, but I think that's only for people who have integrity. People who don't have integrity, I don't think it matters to them. And that is one of the, I'll say, traits or skills that I definitely wanted to have and become is someone who had integrity. So that if something was done that was not correct, I would speak up. And oftentimes people don't speak up, and I'll say in the beginning of my career, I didn't always speak up. I might have said something after the fact to the person because I didn't really know all the people in the room, the players in the room. As I got to know the players in the room, I would actually speak up during comments, events, concerns, etc., because I didn't want certain things to act like it was okay to say or do when it really wasn't okay to say or do. But those things oftentimes it not only takes courage, but it takes the ability to get to know people or know who's in the room. So you're not also offending someone else in the process of trying to correct something that was either said incorrectly or said wrong or, quite frankly, was found insulting. And that's one of the things that I don't want to be a part of and didn't want to be a part of when I first started my job. The other one, I love the fact with the not arguing with people. And quite frankly, I don't think it cares whether it's Harriet Tubman or not. I think you shouldn't argue with anyone that, in many respects, is going to waste your time. If it's not going to be a conversation where there's a discussion between two people or sharing of information between two people, and as we had talked about prior to the podcast, we don't have to agree with each other. We just have to be able to share what we think and not feel judged or evaluated or anything like that. Because that's how learning takes place. And if someone shares something that you don't understand, ask the question, I'm not sure I understand. Why did you say that? Or what's your basis of that, or however you want to ask it so you have a better understanding of what they say and what they do. That's how learning takes place. That's also how people have the opportunity to get to know each other better. It's really through conversation and dialogue. That doesn't mean you're always going to agree with what someone says, but just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean you don't like them. It just means that on that point you disagree. And I think that'll go back to a prior conversation that we had. That's one of the reasons why I don't talk about religion, because I'm not trying to offend someone. But I do remember one time a friend and I had a conversation about religion. And what it was is what we kept hearing was if someone wasn't in your religion, they were going to be going to hell. And it was like, really? Oh, that, but I like that person. That just because they're in a different religion, they shouldn't have to go to hell or whatever. And then we learned over time that it really wasn't that was, even though people said that, that wasn't what they meant. Hopefully, there's one God, but he can be shown or seen or whatever in any number of religions. And I don't think one religion is better than the other, anything like that. So to me, the most important thing is that people believe. And that's the foundation that makes the difference. If you want to understand better, then yes, you ask questions, or in some cases, you just leave it alone. People have a different religion than you, and whatever they believe, and whatever I believe. And I do think that that can work in those situations. I also want to make sure that whatever I'll call it mantra that you live by, that it's something you can live with. Like I said, for me, integrity is important and truth is important. Now, I'm not trying to be so brutally honest that I'm insulting someone, but I also don't want to lie to someone. And I've seen that happen where someone literally lies to someone's face because they don't believe what the person is doing or supporting, etc., but they're also not willing to share that they don't agree or they don't believe. I don't think that's correct. I don't think you should purposefully lie to someone. I think you should either just not finish the conversation or just say, we agree to disagree, and then just move forward with something else. What I will also say is, I think real friendship is hard to come by. And so you do want to be careful what you say and how you say it to others. Any thoughts about that?
I think that if you're close friends, you have to be able to say certain things and people not take it personally or to heart. And if they know your heart, they shouldn't take it personally, but they have to know your heart. And you have to do it with kindness. You can say the most brutal thing to a person, but if you say it with kindness, they'll listen. They won't be defensive.
I'll say in most situations, I'll talk about a friend and I will not name the person. There were a couple of situations where we were talking about what was going on in that person's life. And in one case, I made the suggestion that they should move and it would be a great opportunity and growth for their career. They didn't agree, they disagreed, etc. Of course, they took the position. Then they got there, there were some problems, and it was really to me unnecessary aggravation. And I said, you should leave. No, no, they weren't going to leave because they didn't want someone else running them out of town. It wasn't that. It was much later that we had a conversation where I said, you never asked me why I shared what I shared, so I didn't give a reason for it. As it turned out, at a much later date, we had a conversation and they said to me, which I really valued and adored so much, they said, all the times I always argue with you about what you say, blah, 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 I always take your advice, which was pleasantly surprising, but very, very nice to hear because I was never trying to say things that I think wasn't true or honest or for the betterment, but I want to have a conversation when someone wants to have a conversation. So if you don't ask me why I think or believe what I believe, I'm not going to necessarily volunteer that. I'm going to assume that you make your own decisions, suggestions, etc., and you don't need a rationale. However, if you do, don't ever hesitate to ask me why. I have no problem sharing why I think or believe what I believe or do what I do and why it's important to know and do those specific things. Before we actually end this segment, I'm going to ask, are there any final thoughts or comments you'd like to share?
When I talked about the Harriet Tubman model, basically never arguing with anyone that Harry would have left behind. People need to assess whether or not it's worth your time, effort to really work with someone, to discuss or try to get someone to understand something. If people don't want to understand or if they're not equally invested in coming to a positive conclusion, you need to walk away.
I absolutely agree with that. And the other piece I will add to that is when I work with students, one of the things I would share is advice. But I would always also share with them, you do not have to take my advice. I'm trying to help you to move forward faster, have better options and opportunities. However, please feel free to learn the hard way, which is called the School of Hard Knocks. And what I would add to that is the only reason I wouldn't want you to do that is because you would be so battered and bruised at the end of whatever that activity or experience was. I'm not sure you would still be standing. What I can say is, on at least a couple of occasions that come to mind, students didn't do what I suggested the first time. And in one instance, a student looked at me and said, "Is that what you were trying to tell me?" I said yes. From then on, that student listened to whatever else I had to say because they understood that um, they were able to share information with me and I would respond accordingly. What I'd like to what I would like to do is say thank you so much for listening to Conversations for College Success at hotmail.com, and particularly if you have any questions. And again, thank you to my subscribers and to my listeners. Have a great afternoon. Bye bye.